You think you can threaten me with that? His voice cracked, echoing hard off the old linoleum. I'm not threatening, I'm done hiding. Listen. A click, the little speaker filled the silent room with the gravelly confession. Stop this, don't play that. You have no idea what you're doing. The police are downstairs, she whispered, knuckles white around the tape recorder. Footsteps thundered on the steps, a vase fell, his eyes flicked to the door, trapped. You hand that over and we both burn, he hissed. That's your choice, she shot back, raising her chin as police shadows grew on the hallway wall. You're making a mistake. Am I, or did you just finally run out of places to hide? A heavy fist slammed the table between them, but she didn't flinch. What led her to that room at that moment, pressing play on a stranger's guilt with her whole past at stake? 4 days earlier, she'd had only $42 to her name, a rain-soaked suitcase, and no reason to believe any of this was possible. 4 days before the knock and the tape and the trembling shadows, Tracy had exactly $42.16 left on her debit card. The cash machine in Penobscot County, Maine, had blinked that number at her in unimpressed green, as if daring her to do better. Afternoons around here always came with a chilly wind skimming the cracked streets outside Lewiston, gray clouds pressing in, the harbor gulls screaming exhaust. Tracy's breath fogged the inside of her sedan as she jammed 2 suitcases and a battered rucksack onto the back seat. Rain tapped on the roof, insistent and cold, as if impatient to see what she'd do now. In the passenger seat, her cat Willow shifted nervously in his plastic carrier, ears flat with every passing truck. Tracy cooed, "We're not staying long, okay?" She reached over, running one hand along the battered vent. "If we're lucky, Willow, this'll be over quick." Willow only meowed, plaintive and high. Tracy's hands flexed on the steering wheel. She tried not to think about how, in a single afternoon, both family and finances had abandoned her. Freelancing had been an anchor, sure, right up until a long piece about local real estate fraud had made her a pariah in the one family left to her, her mother's side. Namely, Aunt Nadine and Uncle Ross, for whom blood is thicker, meant nothing if you wrote the wrong kind of story. Hazel-colored eyes flashed through memory, Aunt Nadine at the funeral 2 weeks prior, her lipstick searing as she leaned in, voice cold. "You'll take the old cottage, Tracy, it's all that's left. Nobody wants that dump, especially not us." Ross had laughed openly at the faded turquoise photo she'd handed over. Probably condemned by now, that thing's not worth the repairs. Tracy remembered the taste of humiliation mixing with bitter coffee as distant relatives eyed her, whispering that she was finally getting what she deserved, nothing. Her only inheritance was a 2-bedroom clapboard outside town, shingled roof caving in and porch sagging like a broken jaw. Family members drifted in and out of frame. Jamie, Nadine's eldest, snarking, "Can't wait to see her face when she opens that door." Cousin Dennis muttering, "She might get tetanus just breathing the air." She'd bristled, but Nadine had only smiled, baring teeth. The cottage key sat heavy in Tracy's palm, a tiny brass anchor. She pocketed it, resolved not to let another cruel Tischler family joke sink her. As she drove along the winding coastal road, wind chill seeping through paper-thin glass, she glanced at Willow's wide eyes and forced herself to sound confident. "It's just a house, kid, just a roof and 4 walls. Maybe that's all we need to start something different." If you've ever stared at something everyone else said was worthless and felt the itch to prove them wrong, stay with me. Because every lie breaks somewhere, even the ones kept behind locked doors. Lewiston's Main Street was practically deserted by the time Tracy's uneven tires bumped to a stop in front of 42 Broadview. The porch light buzzed, a flicker of gold in the rain, but the rest of the cottage sagged deeply into moss and wild grass. Paint curled off weather-beaten siding, gutters slumped, and a faded mail sticker glared like a warning. Tracy squared her shoulders, umbrella snapping inside out on first contact with the wind. Willow's yowl echoed across the street. She glanced down the block in time to see Nadine's shiny SUV glide past slowly, window cracked just enough for laughter to ride the wet air. A text vibrated in Tracy's parka pocket. "Nadine, hope you're enjoying your big prize, Miss Reporter. Don't let the raccoons eat you alive." Tracy let the screen darken. "Let's do this. she said to Willow, marching up crumbling steps, key gripped tight enough to cut her skin. The lock stuck, reluctant to yield after years of disuse, but a sharp twist and a curse later, she stumbled into shadow. The interior stank of damp and old soap. As she set the suitcase down, her hand brushed something odd beneath the foyer rug, a lump that didn't match the warped floorboards. She knelt, tugging aside the faded braid. A tarnished skeleton key, taped beneath a loose board. Adrenaline flickered. For one sharp second, Tracy felt the prickling certainty that burying the past in this family never worked for long. Another mystery, another lie waiting to snap. The ancient cottage felt more like a crypt than a home, especially in the late afternoon gloom. Rain slipped between cracks in the roof, and every single step sent tiny shivers through the rotted floorboards. Tracy set Willow's carrier on the least warped plank she could find and unclipped the lid, letting the cat dart under the nearest dust-caked couch. With every creak she remembered Nadine's delighted sneer, "See if you can even keep a roof over your head now, Trace." She gripped the skeleton key, feeling its cold metal cut into her palm. No electricity, no heat. She was still kneeling when the phone vibrated again. Ross, this time. "Still in one piece over there, Ace?" The words stabbed through the ugly dark. Without replying, Tracy dragged her bags to the musty kitchen, flicked a light switch out of habit, and got nothing but silence. The rest of the ground floor revealed itself reluctantly. Faded wallpaper, curtains too heavy with mildew to move, a kitchen that looked abandoned since the tax office issued the last red notice. She found it still tacked to the pantry door. The stairs creaked as she explored, Willow sniffing cautiously at her ankles, but only the bathroom upstairs gave any sense of being recently used. A single, fresh bar of soap by the cracked ceramic sink. Downstairs again, she lingered in the kitchen, memories flooding back. Childhood Thanksgivings spent around the chipped oak table, her mother's laugh carried by the wind. Now just a graveyard of echoes. But the strange lump she'd felt under the foyer rug ticked in her mind. She searched carefully, each movement deliberate, turning up spiders and an ancient peach pit before finding, wedged between floorboards beneath the runner, the corners of a sewing machine treadle base. It was a classic Singer, cast iron but hollowed. Dust coated everything, but her trained eye caught a paper's edge wedged deep in one seam. Tracy's heart hammered. She dropped to her knees and slid out the panel. Inside, dozens of silver coins nestled beside a brittle bundle of envelopes, each stamped with her late grandmother's looping script. For a fleeting second, Tracy saw her reflection in the frosted window, drawn, uncertain, lips pressed tight. The haunted look didn't scare her. She understood this game, dig long enough and the pattern always broke. She extracted the coins, then, breath quickening, slit the tape on the first envelope. Lightning arced outside as she unfolded the page. "My dearest Tracy." The writing trembled, ink splotched by age and perhaps tears. Tracy felt something ancient and raw unfurl between her ribs. She barely noticed the darkness gathering behind her as she read, eyes stinging. The words like a secret swung open. Rain rattled harder. Somewhere Willow meowed low and uneasy. But Tracy didn't stop. She couldn't. The cottage had given her a key, and she wasn't letting it close her out again. Wind battered the glass as Tracy set the letters aside, shock winding through her spine. The topmost envelope had contained more than a note. It held a bundle of property deeds, each stamped clean and crisp with county marks. She spread them on the cracked counter, scanning names and addresses she didn't recognize. Rental payments all collected by Ross Tischler, 5 years running, one ledger whispered in faded pencil. Tracy's stomach twisted, the simple math clear. Her aunt and uncle had been siphoning revenue from half a dozen properties she had no idea belonged to her. She found a second, heavier stack, bank statements with deposits from those addresses. The sums dwarfed any freelance check she'd ever known. "Betrayal isn't the word for it," she told Willow, voice flat, mind whirring. But another envelope stopped her cold. An audio cassette decades old with a battered green label, "For Tracy, when the truth needs telling." Her knuckles felt numb. She fished an ancient tape player from the adjacent junk drawer. Someone, maybe her grandmother, had always kept things for later use. The machine whirred to life, static filling the silence. Her grandmother's voice, grainy and tired, emerged. "If you're hearing this, I couldn't tell you in person, but I was forced. Nadine and Ross made me sign a new will. They threatened me. The real documents are under my old sewing machine. I'm sorry, Tracy. Get help. Don't let them hide again." Tracy pressed her hand over her mouth. Her feet tingled against the peeling linoleum. Adrenaline kept her anchored, questions barreling through her mind as thunder crashed above. She had proof. She had motive. She had a timeline. In just 4 days, Nadine was flying back from Florida to finalize everything in court. And Tracy intended to burn their lies to the ground. She paced the cramped cottage, heart pounding as she pieced together an action plan. She needed corroboration. She needed expert eyes on these deeds, and she needed them fast. There was only one person who would know the Tischler family's dirty secrets, someone who had stayed loyal to Tracy's grandmother until the end. Lorraine Harker, who lived 2 streets over, rumored to have seen everything in that last, bitter autumn. Rain slackened as Tracy bundled the evidence in a plastic bag and slipped out the side door, Willow purring uncertainly through the window. A determined march down the back lane, her palms sweating, pulse in her ears. Lorraine's porch light flickered, warm yellow in the fog. Tracy didn't hesitate. She rapped hard, answered by the shuffle of slippers and the creak of an old bolt. "Tracy Lane, is that you?" Lorraine peered from behind horn-rimmed glasses, eyes darting from Tracy's anxious face to the bundle of documents beneath her arm. I need to talk, please. It's important." Tracy's voice trembled just enough for the older woman to nod. Inside, the kitchen smelled of cinnamon and vinegar cleaner. Pictures lined the walls, Lorraine with Tracy's grandmother, smiling in softer years. Tracy set the bundle on the table. Lorraine poured coffee without asking, her voice brisk. "You always did get yourself into messes." Tracy grimaced. "Seems like this one found me." Lorraine sifted through the papers, muttering. Her finger traced each deed, each bank statement, landing at last on the cassette. "They said the cottage was all you'd get, but there's more. She made me promise, Tracy, if anything happened, you'd hear the truth." Tracy pressed her case. "I found these, the will, the coins, the tape." Lorraine nodded before Tracy finished. "Your aunt was always greedy, but Ross, he took special delight in keeping your mother's side out." A phone buzzed on Lorraine's countertop, news alert. Tischler probate hearing rescheduled, principal heir returning in 4 days. 4 days, Tracy's voice broke, panic stitching through. Lorraine removed her glasses. "Then we work faster than they do." They huddled over the evidence. Lorraine's brow furrowed as she read bank deposit summaries. These rental payments, someone could check public records, trace where the money went, but it'll take muscle to force them open. Tracy's mind flipped into old journalist mode, words sharp. "We get a forensic accountant. We push the district clerk for intervention." Her voice rose, shoulders squared. "We do not let them shut this down." Lorraine's phone chirped again. Tracy flinched, paranoia rising. "I can call Eileen at the town office," Lorraine said, determined. "She's seen Nadine try this before." "You trust her?" "With my last pie recipe and yours, too." Tracy grinned, fragile and real. "Then let's bring them something they won't see coming." They mapped out calls, scanned in evidence, prepped statements. Every hour counted. Nadine would land in less than 4 days. Tracy's laptop battery blinked at 12%. "We start tonight," Tracy said. "No one's erasing me again." She left Lorraine's, rain finally breaking, her own steps sharp on cracked sidewalks. By noon next day, courthouse parking lot, Tracy's hands shook. Lorraine met her at the back entrance, pressing a flash drive into her palm. "We have Eileen's testimony. Walter from the title office corroborated he saw your grandmother sign under duress. Clerks got the originals on standby. Tracy checked her phone. Messages from Nadine. Heard you're digging, don't embarrass yourself. She texted back, heart steady, see you soon. They took everything to Louise Henry, probate lawyer known for her dry wit and iron backbone. Louise studied the documents, then lifted her eyes to Tracy. You realize if this holds, the entire estate gets reopened. We'll need immediate injunctions. Be ready, they'll come at you with everything. We have less than 4 days, Tracy replied. Then we don't sleep, Lorraine interjected, unblinking. Tracy and Louise began assembling affidavits, notarized witness statements, and financial breakdowns. Louise moved quickly, thick legal pads filling with cross-references. A new twist came with noon mail, a registered envelope addressed to Tracy in Nadine's sharp hand. Stop before you regret it. Lorraine tore it open, unamused. Inside, only a scrawled line, you know how we play. Tracy's jaw set, Louise leaned back, dry. They're feeling the heat. Within hours, Ross's name vanished from 2 property management companies. Bank accounts started shifting, someone was hiding assets. Louise cursed, made a call, freeze everything now. Evening, Nadine's son Jamie intercepted Tracy outside the cottage. He stepped from the shadows, hands jammed in hoodie pockets. You should have left well enough alone, he hissed. No one wants to see you win. Tracy stood her ground. Winning isn't even the point, I just want what's right. Jamie scoffed, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Ross was next. Late that night, his pickup's headlights swept the drive. He didn't bother knocking, just bellowed from the yard. You think you've got the real story, Tracy? Go ahead. Your evidence won't stand up. Nobody cares. Tracy, emboldened by adrenaline and Lorraine's faith, swung open the door, phone's recorder on. Got something you want to add, Ross? Care to repeat that for the police? His face drained. You're twisting things. You've always been a troublemaker. You're a thief, Tracy replied, voice sharp. That won't change no matter how many lawsuits you threaten. He stormed off, a bluster hiding real fear. Tracy spent the next day burning through phone minutes, filing emergency motions with Louise, chasing down witnesses, confirming Lorraine's timeline. Sleep vanished. Third night, Willow's purr against her ankle the only comfort. Yet she pressed on, each new fact a brick in the wall against her family's deceit. By the morning of day 4, the stage was set. Louise summoned Tracy, Lorraine, and Clerk Eileen to the county courthouse. 5 police officers attended, 3 journalists, and already lurking in the hall, Nadine in a tight red suit, Ross beside her with a clammy grin. Tracy checked the recorder, the tape ready in her hand. Showtime. The courthouse conference room dripped with fluorescent suspicion. Tracy crossed the threshold, heart thrumming, Lorraine's steady hand at her elbow. Louise gestured for the group to sit. Nadine eased herself into the largest chair, crossing her legs as if holding court. Ross lingered by the window, eyes avoiding Tracy's. Louise's voice was bulletproof. Let's begin. Tracy Lane has filed formal motion to reverse probate based on new documentary and audio evidence, as well as multiple sworn statements confirming Will fraud. Nadine's eyelids fluttered, false innocence coating her tone. Louise, this is all so unfortunate. Why drag family into court? That little house was always meant for Tracy. She's the only one foolish enough to want it. Ross barked a laugh. Ask her about the plumping. I doubt she lasted an hour before complaining. Tracy ignored him, addressing the court. I found property deeds hidden inside the cottage, cash ledgers signed by my late grandmother. All incomes for the last 5 years managed by Ross and Nadine, not reported anywhere, not disclosed to me. Nadine tapped her heel. You just don't understand estate law, dear. Rentals were under company management. Your grandmother was confused in those last months. Confused, Tracy shot back. She was terrified. I have her on tape. She names both of you, says you forced her signature under threat. A ripple of discomfort spread. Eileen, the clerk, fidgeting at the table's end, cleared her throat. I handled the wills. I remember seeing fear in that woman's eyes. Nadine flicked a glare toward Eileen. You must be mistaken. No one forced anything. Tracy laid out the paperwork with shaking but certain hands. These are the original deeds, these bank statements, those checks, every sum traced from properties to your accounts, Ross. How can you explain that? Ross's face mottled, voice unsteady. I only managed what Nadine told me to do. She kept the books. Nadine turned, lip curled. Don't you dare throw me under the bus. You deposited every dime. Tracy pressed play on the cassette. Her grandmother's voice, fragile, pleading, filled the silent room. If you're hearing this, Nadine and Ross made me sign against my will. They threatened my friends. The real will is under the Singer sewing machine. Please, Tracy, bring this into the light. A heavy silence. Nadine's slick chill faltered. I demand that tape be destroyed. Her voice cracked. Louise didn't blink. On the contrary, it's being submitted as Exhibit 1. Ross lunged for the table, voice tight. You little liar, this was your mother's fault. She left you with nothing. Tracy met his rage with measured calm. Maybe you forgot, my mother wanted this family to stay honest. Police officers advanced. Nadine hissed at Ross, you fix this. You said no one would ever find out. Ross turned wild-eyed, desperation flaring. She told me it was legal. Nadine, you're dragging us both down. Tracy leaned forward, reciting the same words that, only moments from now, would open this story for everyone. You think you can threaten me with that? Ross's hands fisted on the polished table. I'm not threatening, I'm done hiding. Listen. She pressed play again, voice shaking but firm. Stop this, don't play that, you have no idea what you're doing. Nadine's panic swept around the room, pulling at her son, Jamie, who now shrank away, shrinking under the glares. The police are downstairs, Tracy whispered, gripping the tape. Footsteps pounded up the marble hall, a vase trembled, Nadine's eyes darted, cornered. Ross hissed, you hand that over and we both burn. Tracy stood, tape recorder aloft. That's your choice. A heavy fist slammed the table, but she didn't budge. You're making a mistake, Nadine shrieked, but Tracy's voice cut her down. Am I, or did you just finally run out of places to hide? Cameras flashed, police entered, radios clicking against the doorframe. Officers approached the table. Officer Green, styly and indifferent, addressed them. Nadine Tischler, Ross Tischler. You are under investigation for probate fraud, elder abuse, and theft exceeding $5 million. Someone gasped, Jamie, maybe Lorraine. Lorraine rose, standing beside Tracy. It's over, Lorraine said, quiet and edged. Nadine blanched. Ross tried to stammer denials. I was lied to, Nadine forced. And Ross signed everything, Nadine spat. Louise held up the stack of affidavits, unyielding. All witness statements go to the DA, anything to add. Even among family, self-preservation won. Nadine's son, Jamie, offered up an email chain confirming payout schedules. Lorraine stepped in. I'll testify to what I saw, to their threats and to her fear. The last sentence hung as the officers led Nadine and Ross away, handcuffs tight, the courtroom's tension easing into exhausted relief. Afterward, the courthouse corridors buzzed with the aftermath. Nadine and Ross, so recently united in cruelty, turned on each other immediately, each scapegoating, offering stray pieces of evidence to lighten their own sentencing. Within days, the DA's office had enough for full prosecution. Financial records from Nadine, confession emails from Ross, everything filtered through fear and desperation. Louise met Tracy outside, files under one arm. They'll serve real time, she said. The restitution will be full and the DA aims to make an example. Lorraine squeezed Tracy's hand tight. Your grandmother would have been proud, she murmured. Lines formed outside the courthouse, neighbors, tenants from those rental properties, community members who'd always suspected but never known. An apology to Tracy seemed to hang in the air, unsaid but heavy. The DA awarded Tracy full control of the reclaimed estate, now estimated between $5 and $15 million, minus restitution for family clients Nadine and Ross had defrauded. Community sympathy swung fast. Old friends came by with casserole dishes. Even cousin Jamie left a note, clumsy but real. "Sorry, Trace. I didn't know how bad it really was." Renovations began at the cottage. Tracy moved back the next week, installing new locks, repairing old windows, coat after coat of fresh paint, scrubbing out rot and history but keeping the sturdy bones. Willow thrived, king of every sunbeam. One stormy afternoon, Lorraine stopped by with blueberry muffins, catching Tracy hunched over blueprints at the kitchen table. "So you're really staying in Lewiston?" Lorraine asked, eyes soft. "Yeah," Tracy said quietly. "This place, what they meant to erase, is where I finally get to decide what stays." The air tasted like hope and gingerbread. Outside, hammering resumed on roof beams older than justice itself. What's worth fighting for is rarely the shiniest thing on offer. Sometimes it's the home everyone else walked past, what you almost didn't claim. This was Tracy's new beginning, rebuilt not just from inheritance but from truth earned line by honest line. If you've ever wanted to show the world you're more than their lowest expectation, remember there's power in refusing to let someone else's lies tell your story. Tracy watched the sun set through new glass, Willow curled against her hip, and knew the next chapter, whatever it looked like, belonged only to her. The last beams of dusk melted between the pines pointing up from Broadview Street. Tracy leaned against the cottage's chipped clapboards, inhaling the damp alfalfa and the scent of sawdust that lingered from repairs. Willow patrolled the porch, tail high, pausing every few feet to swat a moth or simply to test his own luck in this new, safer world. Lorraine's battered Subaru idled at the curb, headlights yellow in the gathering dark. "You need anything tonight? Casserole? A dozen old family secrets?" Lorraine teased from the walkway, clutching her battered purse like a lifeline. "I've got both, though only one will keep." Tracy cracked a smile, shouldering her denim jacket tighter. "I think for once I'm all stocked up, but come inside, I wouldn't mind a coffee, it still gets lonely here at night." The older woman beamed, stepping through the doorway with the ease of someone returning home. Shadows played on the walls, familiar now but less menacing with each passing day. They settled in the kitchen, the air sweet with muffins and the clean gleam of possibility. "So," Lorraine said, tucking her feet up under her, "what will you do with all of it? Houses, land, the works." Tracy ran her finger in slow circles around her mug. "I've been thinking. Part of me wants to sell it all, put Maine in the rear view, just pack up and vanish like Aunt Nadine always accused me of wanting to." "Ma," Lorraine said, neither agreeing nor pushing. But I keep thinking about Gran. She wanted me to find this. Not so I could run, but so I could build something nobody could steal or cheat away." She stared past Lorraine, past the window, into the scrim of rain dappling the glass. "Maybe I keep a few of the rentals, fix them up, let some decent families rent them at prices they can actually afford. Use the rest for legal clinics for tenants who got burned. I could write again, maybe tell a few stories they don't want in the local papers." Lorraine's smile was quiet and wide, pride tucked in the lines at her eyes. That would make Lena proud. She hated how those two ran roughshod over this place. They sat in comfortable silence a moment, Willow winding between their ankles. When thunder rumbled again in the hills, it sounded less like a threat and more like a promise that storms could pass. Lorraine glanced at her watch. "I should head home before the second downpour hits. Call if you need anything or if you get some wild idea about running for town council." Tracy snorted, "Don't tempt me." At the door, Lorraine paused, her tone softened, gone a little hoarse with history. "You did good, kiddo, I hope you know that." When Tracy closed the door and leaned against it for the first time since she'd arrived, her shoulders unclenched. She flicked on a lamp, watched the bulb flare warm, and let herself believe that cozy could be real. She took her mug onto the porch, watching the rain feather down, the steam curling quietly above her hand. Across the street, the old neighbor, Mr. Fallow, shuffled out to collect his mail. He looked up and raised a gnarled fist in salute. "Evenin', Miss Lane. Lookin' different over there, I see." "It's a work in progress, Mr. Fallow, but I'll keep at it," she called back. He grinned. About time someone gave that house a future. A laugh bubbled up, effortless. Tracy returned to her chair, Willow leaping into her lap, settling with a heavy, contented purr. She let her mind wander, cataloging all the things left to fix, all the futures strung behind every battered cupboard and sunlit corner. Her phone buzzed one last time on the porch rail. A message from Louise: "Settlement paperwork draws up tomorrow, no further appeals, Nadine's plea hearing next week. You're really free, Tracy, well done." Tracy thumbed back a smiley and a thank you, let the phone drop face down, and watched the wind chase raindrops down the eaves. Somehow she didn't feel vengeful or even particularly victorious, just deeply, fiercely relieved. There were still wounds, but she knew, finally, the worst of her family's ghosts had been aired and banished. Inside, the living room lamp glowed on the sewing machine where it all began. Tracy sipped her coffee and thought of her grandmother's voice, the wavering strength that had set this all in motion. She crossed the parlor, running her hand along the grain of the singer, feeling the ghosts of past and possibility flicker at her fingertips. Willow twined around her ankles in approval. "We did it, Gran," Tracy whispered, not caring if anyone heard. From the window, Tracy could see her reflection, eyes steady, hair wild from the rain, a fullness in her chest she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, the face looking back was her own, stubborn, weathered, but shining with the kind of hope no inheritance could buy. In the hush between storms, she opened her laptop and wrote her first news story since arriving. She wrote it for the neighbors who believed, for Lorraine, for every tenant who deserved better, for herself, and sent it quietly to the local paper. She ended the piece with a line her grandmother once told her, whispered at the edge of sleep in this very cottage: "Truth is what roots you, Tracy. Lies only float away." Lightning stitched the horizon, but inside, Tracy Lane smiled and let the truth settle in. She was home. Morning broke soft and gold through the new windows, carrying the scent of pine and coffee. Tracy woke before Willow, padding barefoot through the sunlit kitchen that finally felt hers. Across the table, the settlement papers waited, Louise's neat tabs marking places to sign. Tracy ran a finger along the edge, half smiling at the miracle of bureaucracy. This stack, ordinary as rain, meant closure in all the ways that mattered. By 9, Lorraine arrived, bearing scones and a grin that crinkled her cheeks. "You sleep at all," she teased. "Like I owed it to myself," Tracy said, letting her voice thread between humor and truth. "You staying for the ceremonial last signature?" "Wouldn't miss it, kiddo." Lorraine poured coffee without asking. Together they went over each page, Lorraine reading aloud the dry phrases, fee simple, clear title, restitution, until the end. Tracy's hands barely shook as she pressed pen to the last signature line. At that moment, she felt the weight of the whole family shift from her shoulders to the paper, to be filed and kept, and for once fair. Lorraine slid her phone across. "Take a picture for the record, for you know the grandnieces who'll beg you for the full story one day." Tracy laughed. "I think I'll leave out a few of the details." Outside, a car slowed, Jamie waving awkwardly from behind the wheel. He called, "Good luck, Trace," then sped off, but the gesture, however small, made her chest tighten with the possibility of forgiveness. Lorraine watched, gentle. Things will settle even with family, they always do one way or another. Willow hopped on the sill, tail flicking with approval. Tracy scratched his ears, breathing deep. "What's next?" Lorraine asked. Tracy gazed at her cottage and the bright world beyond. "First," she said, I finish repairs, then I write, and when I'm ready I open the doors for neighbors, for stories, maybe even for another lost lane someday. Lorraine nodded, eyes shining. That's how you make a home last. As the morning spilled across the worn floor, Tracy felt the truth root in her, just as her grandmother promised. The cottage, the story, all of it was hers at last. She reached for her laptop, heart light, ready to begin again.